Euphoria is one of the most popular shows at the moment, and I've never seen a single full episode. That's not a flex, it's embarrassing. It's uncharacteristic of me. I usually like to watch whatever the most popular shit is, just that way I feel in the loop and included on the fun. I don't like logging on to Twitter in general, but even more so, I hate going on to Twitter and seeing people talk about Euphoria and not have a single fucking idea what's going on. I just feel yucky. It makes me feel like I'm eating alone at the lunch tables while everyone else is off enjoying their meals and talking about cool shit. Now, while I haven't seen a full episode of the show, I've seen a ton of bits and pieces from a lot of different episodes because Tiana watches it. So when I'm eating or something and she's watching it, I watch like 10 or 15 minutes of whatever random episode she's on. And without fail so far, every single time I've tuned into Euphoria while she's watching it, there's just been a bunch of cock on the screen or a bunch of sex. And if they're not actively fucking when I tune in, they're only like 3 sentences away from it. It's like in Mass Effect when you do all of the romance options for one of your crewmates and then you only have to do like 2 more dialogue options, then you just get the fuck. That's what it is every time I've seen Euphoria so far. It's either Zendaya doing drugs and then having sex, or Nate Jacobs arguing with a girl and then them having sex. Like, it's just, that was the impression I got. That's what I thought the whole show was about, because I'm just getting the spark notes here, which seems like all roads lead to mashing pissers. Whereas online, everyone has been praising it for all kinds of like great cinematography, great messages, and all kinds of like powerful themes and shit, which obviously I, as a casual viewer, didn't digest because I'll go downstairs to get a yogurt for a snack, and then for 10 minutes I'm just looking at Euphoria and hearing, Nate, you're such a fucking narcissistic psychopath, you fucking weirdo, please fuck me. It's like, okay, so Euphoria is a show for people that are too lazy to go on the internet to watch porn, they'll just watch porn on Netflix. So that was the impression I got, but after reading all of the praise on Twitter, as well as watching Noelle's video on Is Euphoria Mid, I realized that I may just have the wrong idea about the show in general, and like a transformer, there's more than meets the eye, and the ass, I suppose. So I believe all of the montage moments I've been able to tune into of just raw dogging fucking making a bedroom ham sandwich is probably not representative of the whole show. So I'm going to make an effort to try and watch every episode before the finale tomorrow. So I have approximately like 14 hours as of making this video, which I think should be ample time to go through all of it, just to give it a really fair shake and see if it's a show that I'd actually enjoy. But there is something I'd like to talk about, and Noel's the one that brought it to my attention in his video. All of the penises that I saw weren't real. They're fake. Made up. Prosthetic cocks. They use stunt penis in Euphoria, which immediately took it down a notch in my book. Because at the very least, when I tune into Euphoria and I'd see all this like sex and shit, I'd be like, wow, they're just hanging full dong. That's bold. That's innovative. That's new, you know? Good for them, that's exciting. That was like the only praise I could give it. It's like, well, they're just fucking full hogging it, just fucking going wacky out there. But apparently it's not even their actual dicks. Come on now, like if it was me, I'd really commit to the craft. You know me, yeah, you know, I held the Hunger Games franchise together. I was Officer Greg in a moving performance from Last of the Grads. I'm able to truly assimilate into the role and just really become the character. So if a scene called for just full-blown meat out in the air, out in the open, then god damn it, I'm letting it ride. The only question I'd have for the director is, can I please get it semi-chubbed at the very least? Let me get it up to its peak performance. Because goddamn, having my flaccid wiener out there would be a career-ending maneuver. That shit would be a speed run to embarrassment. Definitely a grower, not a shower. That if my flaccid penis was out on Euphoria, it would be certainly a sad set of affairs. Now, when it's operating at its maximum potential, I can get my cock up to about 6.5 inches of just steel and glory and bravery. So, ideally, the circumstances would align where the director would allow me that generosity. But you know what? If they said, nope, Charlie, it's got to be a soft dick, then you know what? Fuck it. And I have a great excuse like, no, my soft wiener isn't actually small, it's just acting. So as long as the stipulation in the contract would say like Charles's real cock can be at least somewhat hard, then yeah, I'd let it go for the sake of the craft and for the sake of being able to really deliver a moving performance, of course. But anyway, I'm getting carried away in the what ifs. I saw a scene, and it's a scene I talked about on stream, where in Euphoria, a character is Nate's father, and he apparently has a head injury. I don't know how or exactly what the injury is. He probably got the head injury from having too much sex, based on everything I've seen in the show. But he has a head injury. He's drunk. I think he's also on medication as well, so he's really out of it. And then he just tells his son, "I'm going drunk driving." So the dad just leaves. He goes drunk driving. And then a few minutes later, it's not even much later, the dad comes back after drunk driving and he just whips his cock out and just starts peeing all over the floor. And then he has this conversation with his family. He delivers like a very big speech to the family. And the whole time, his penis is hanging out. And I was like, damn, good on this guy. He really went for it in this role. And then after hearing from Noel that it's all stunt penises, I looked into it, and yeah, it wasn't his real wiener. Like, he didn't actually use his actual dick, which was disappointing to read. It was like, wow, I had so much respect for this guy going dick out and getting crazy with it, and it turns out just more movie magic. Unbelievable. So a bit of the immersion is ruined going into Euphoria, but I'm still going to try and give it a whirl and get through every episode before the finale tomorrow. And we'll see how it goes, because maybe I'll also like the show, and then at the very least I can understand all of the huge conversations around the show. So yeah, I just wanted to make this to talk about the show a little bit based on the limited knowledge I have of it, and let you all know I'm going to try and get through all of it in a day. That's about it. See ya. In the creatively bankrupt industry that is Hollywood, there is two go-to methods, two tried and true strategies that studios will employ when they need some quick cash grabs. The first, and most common thanks to Disney, is live-action remakes of beloved animated films. And now we're seeing this scourge leak elsewhere with How to Train Your Dragon now getting a live-action remake. Like, How to Train Your Dragon doesn't even have the courtesy of being a reimagining of the animation that it's based on. It seems to be a one-for-one, shot-for-shot remake, but with some live-action actors and CGI. So it's still animation in a lot of places, just a different kind. Why even fucking bother? I know why studios do it, because people, for some reason, just pull money out their ass to go see it. But I'm getting off on a tangent. I'm not going to keep ranting here. Maybe I'll save that for another video. The other strategy Hollywood likes to employ when they're in desperate need of quick cash is making an unnecessary sequel to a beloved film a decade or 2 decades ago, which is what Gladiator 2 is. From the time the first trailer dropped, I didn't have a whole lot of hope for this film, because why the fuck are you making a Gladiator 2 sequel 24 years later? The first Gladiator was an incredible film that was a complete package that doesn't really have any need for a sequel. And most of the time when studios try this, where they make this sequel so many years later, they're trash, absolute dog shit. And the trailer didn't sell me on this being great or anything, but people did. When the reviews started coming out and my chat was talking about Gladiator 2, they were all saying that it's really solid and they did a super good job. So I decided to go see it today, smoke 'em if you got 'em. So I burnt rubber getting to the theater to plop my ass in a front row seat, unfortunately, because that was the only seats available for the matinee I went to this afternoon. So I sat there with some neck pain staring up at the screen like a baby bird waiting to be fed. And overall, I thought the film was solid. I was entertained for the most part. But I still believe this was just a pretty unnecessary sequel that just served to be a quick infusion of cash to the studio, because everyone knows Gladiator 1, so it was guaranteed to get a lot of peepers on it. In a lot of ways, Gladiator 2 just kind of retells similar story beats from Gladiator 1, but does it worse. It's like a diet version of some of Gladiator 1's best hits. A lot of the story beats that were done really well in the first movie get a great value Fortnite skin in this movie. And that's a little harsh, because it's not like they're horrible, like they don't fall flat, it's not like a complete fucking blunder. But it's just hard to watch this and not compare it to the first one with how much better it was in those aspects, because it does have very similar story beats. Now, it's not a one-to-one carbon copy or anything. Like, Gladiator 2 does introduce a lot of new things, and some of them are good, some of them are not. I'll go ahead and start with the things I liked. Visually, I think the film is strong. I think the visuals slap for the most part. I know a lot of people pointed out inaccuracies with the time period, like the dogs or something aren't time period accurate. I could wipe my ass with that. I don't really give a fuck. That didn't take me out of it. It didn't break my immersion. I think for the most part, they committed to going over the top Rome, and they did a good job with that. I think they delivered on it. The action was pretty crisp. It was pretty brutal, visceral. I do think they succeeded there. And I do think the main character, Lucius, was very good, especially considering the big shoes to fill with Maximus from the first film. I think it's a great performance here that unfortunately gets buried by some really odd writing decisions. Like, I can't even call it like dumpster tier because it's not like fucking atrocious, but just some really confusing things that only serve to weaken Lucius narratively. To explain what I mean, I'll go ahead and give you like the bare bones birthday suit, the skeleton outline of the plot. Lucius is the son of Maximus. His mother sends him away to keep him safe after the death of Maximus. Years later, the general of the Roman army leads a charge against the place where Lucius is at. Lucius eventually gets taken as a slave and bought by Denzel Washington's character as a gladiator to fight for the amusement of the emperors in Rome. Now, when the general took control of the area Lucius was at, he directly ordered one of the archers to be killed. That archer was the wife of Lucius. So this makes him hate the general. He already had a deep hatred of Rome, and now he is a gladiator there. Super straightforward, and he carries this for 90% of the film until all of a sudden he doesn't. So you spend the whole film with him hating Rome like bitterly, and rightfully so with everything he's been through. And then there's a moment where the general gets a little more fleshed out. The general and him square off, and it's what he wanted. He just wants to kill the general for what happened to his wife, and he hates Rome. He even tried to kill one of the emperors. The emperors are brothers, so there's two. He shot a crossbow at them. It missed, but like he also doesn't like anything about Rome, doesn't like the general. The general then reveals to him like a little bit more information, and then they immediately like share kind of a heart to heart. And Lucius now all of a sudden, loves and appreciates the general, and now is willing to die for Rome. Now all of a sudden he's willing to just stake everything for the glory of Rome, to realize the dream that his grandfather had of Rome. And all of it happens like that. It's not a gradual buildup or anything. Also, when he reconnects with his mother after, winning a couple bouts in the arena, after like the iconic sand thing that he emulates, he connects with his mother, but he literally screams at her, says like, that boy that you sent away is dead. He yells at her, get the fuck out. Like, he hates his mother. Actual like temper tantrum, it's not a phase mom type energy. And then only like 5 scenes later, he loves his mother and wants to do everything he can to save her. And all of these are like logical places for him to have eventually gotten to, but it happens so quick, like so abruptly, that it feels like he just impulsively like latches onto something and is more than willing to just let it go, like instantly. It makes sense narratively how he gets there, but it just happens too quickly in the movie. They don't build up to it. It just kind of happens. And I do think that there is writing around the character that just doesn't work. Like, Lucius and the actor do a really good job of making him badass. He is a capable fighter, he's a good leader, and it's not like there's anything in there that just feels like an ass pull moment. I do think all of it feels earned and sensible. It just happens so quickly, and there's times where the writing just kind of betrays it. Like, this is probably a big spoiler warning, but in the time where the general is no longer around, Lucius tries to command that army by just sending a ring saying, hey, I'm Lucius. And no one's ever met him, by the way. No one even knew he was alive. He wasn't using the name Lucius throughout the film or anything. No one even knows who the fuck this is, but he delivers the general's ring to the army that the general commands. And somehow the army just decides, okay, we're going to follow this mysterious guy who had this ring. Like, that's a bit of a leap. And it's not necessarily like Lucius or the actor's fault. Like, that's just kind of silly writing, in my opinion. Like, it's cool visually to see, but there had to be another way of getting to that point. Like, it just feels like where it gets is cool, but it gets there in ways that I don't think work super well. But anyway, I think for the most part, like, the film is solid, but there are 2 characters I think are just terrible, and it's the emperors. I thought the brother emperors were just awful. It was just like so over the top and in your face that it just became annoying, and it like reminded you that this is a movie every time they're on screen, because it felt like you were watching Thespian Troupe Drama Club monologues where they just go so big and so silly with it. Like, for example, I really like Joseph Quinn. He is one of the brother emperors here, and I just do not think it fit at all. So, like, I'm trying not to spoil too many things here, but this is probably not a spoiler. Like, in the scene during one of the battles, in the iconic, thumbs up, thumbs down type shit, well, he's like channeling the gods, and he actually does this. I'm not shitting you.
and he does that for a while before like bringing it down into one of these. And it's like, what the fuck, man? Like, that's not, especially when you compare it to how great the villain was in Gladiator 1. To have the two brother emperors come here and do that kind of performance is just, it's laughable. And it's not supposed to be. Like, I know they're supposed to be kind of incompetent with the way the movie portrays them. And the other brother that's not Joseph Quinn, I don't even know their characters' names, by the way. I actually cannot remember. They were just pretty annoying. But Joseph Quinn's brother, the other emperor, I'm pretty sure every scene he is screaming. Like, he is yelling in pretty much every scene he's in, or he's like doing cartoonish laughs like, violence, war, let them eat war, let them eat war. And it's just so dumb. Like, I just don't think it fit at all. I can recognize that was the goal of the characters, to be pretty unserious and silly and not take them too seriously, because there is a bigger villain behind the scenes, not getting into spoilers, but come on. There had to be some kind of middle ground to reach, because right now I just think those two characters kill this film's momentum pretty often and take wind out of its sails, because you'll have like a good scene that happens and then an emperor will come through. Remarkable, remarkable, glorious, absolutely magnificent, good sir, I must have your name. What is your name? Give me your name. Every scene they are in, they are the worst part of the scene. They are evil for the sake of evil. They don't even have any real motivation at all. They are so one-dimensional. Like, they don't have, like, they're not characters, they're caricatures. And that just, I feel like that's so underwhelming. They didn't have to be. I feel like there was definitely something cool they could have done with them, but they just abandoned it, because there is a lot of characters here. Like, it is a movie that has a lot of characters that you're supposed to care about or root for or root against. So maybe it just fell to the back burner and they just didn't bother. The other characters I do think around them are good. Lucilla, while not having a major role or anything, when she's there, she is doing a good job of pushing things forward. So she made the decision of sending Lucius away. She regrets it. She wants to fix things for the future. Her son's back in the fold, and she wants to, deliver the Rome that was the grandfather's dream and do her best to help Lucius. Pedro Pascal plays General Acacius, and I think he does a really decent job. Although I don't think he was given a whole ton to do, unfortunately. Like, I thought he was going to be a much bigger character in this movie, but he's kind of not. But he does a good job of balancing, like, the guy who knows the emperors are assholes, that they're not feeding people, and he wants, like, kind of the best for Rome, but he also still has a duty to them. Like, I do think he does a good job with it. Even though it's not, like, amazing, it's still pretty decent. And then Denzel Washington's character, Macrinus, sometimes is great, and then other times is just not good. Like, the character will come up with these great plans and then all of a sudden decide, you know what, I think I'm just going to engage in fisticuffs here against someone that is clearly one of the best fighters Rome has ever seen. I'll go ahead and fight him, even though I have not been a fighter this entire movie. So you're like scratching your head like, what? Why would you do that? Like, your whole thing is like plans and being 2 steps ahead, and now you're just gonna fight a guy you have no chance against. What the fuck is, like, what? So, like, sometimes Macrinus is great, and other times he's making decisions like that. And he is a character that pushes everything forward by making Lucius a gladiator. And he is a character that's slowly gathering power behind the scenes. He's crafting these elaborate plans. He's scheming. He's manipulating. Like, he just is a cunning individual who is clearly working towards some big goals. And it's cool, but I also feel like that character just gets lucky almost entirely. Like, there's a whole monologue he has about being chosen by the gods, and that's, like, super accurate. He was chosen by the writers just to have, like, this plot armor where things just kind of work out magically for him. Like, things that he couldn't possibly have known or had any control over. Things just kind of fell into place exactly how they needed to for his plans to work. Like, I think Denzel Washington's a great actor, and I do think this character is a strong character, but there are times where I'm like, okay, really? This is a big spoiler warning, but the way that he gets Lucius to fight the general, which is the promise they made in the beginning, where Lucius would, do his best for Macrinus as long as Macrinus delivers the general's head, the way that he eventually puts those chess pieces on the board was entirely by accident. Truly by just happenstance. Because the general was working on a plot behind the scenes that one of the people at the facility just happen to overhear, relay to one of the guys that happens to be indebted to Macronus, who just happens to be like really easy to squeeze information out of. So he hears it and then it's like, oh, okay, I'll just go ahead and turn him in. And that's kind of how it happens. But if that plan was never in place, like if the general was never doing that plan, which Macronus had no idea he ever was, then there would never be a way for him to have ever delivered on that deal of the general and Lucius fighting. But it worked out for him magically. But it is still cool to see it work out for him because, you know, it's a movie. Like the plans that he creates, they're gonna come to fruition. It's just I would have liked if his plans were actually because of his like brilliant strategy. And some of them are. Like towards the end, him gaining power, he had a good plan for overall, until eventually his plan was as simple as it gets of just kill, now I'm in charge. Like that's a pretty simple plan. That's not like a galaxy brain scheme. But up until that point, like when he was gathering power in like the shadows and all that, it was pretty smart stuff that he was putting into play. Overall, I didn't regret my time watching the film or anything, but it really is just a movie that was made because the studio execs were like, we need something that'll generate money no matter what. What kind of a beloved property we have in the back burner in the toy box collecting dust? Gladiator? Yeah, let's make a sequel for it. And then they just worked backwards from there. It was never we've got this amazing story we want to tell for Gladiator 2. It's going to be amazing. It was always just, we need a sequel to something beloved. So they did this. Which isn't the worst thing in the world, I suppose, because at least it's enjoyable. A lot of these sequels that come out so many years later are just downright unwatchable. This one is still a fun movie. It's just, it copies a lot of the homework from the first Gladiator, just a little worse. So, I mean, if you just want more Gladiator combat, though, this shit's gonna slap for you, I have no doubt. Anyway, though, that's really about it. So, yeah. Season 2 of Arcane just wrapped up, and I can now comfortably say that this is what $250 million should look like. Not Red 1, which also had a budget of $250 million and looked like the product of ChatGPT just spitting out fanfic for the most generic throwaway cash grab Christmas movie of all time. This is a show that looks unbelievable. It is a masterpiece of animation, and I dare say this is probably the most visually stunning animated series ever produced. Period. Just point blank. I'm willing to flop my meat on the table and say that, because it is truly incredible what they have done for animation in this show. Every episode was just breathtaking from start to finish. They didn't cut any corners at all. This is something special. And it really stands out to me because right now we're in the era of every blockbuster production being $100 million plus budget and just looking like dog shit. Like Megaflopolis, over $100 million, and that movie looks like a GeoCities webpage that has a plot that's held together by toothpicks and bubblegum. Or if we want to stick with shows for a comparison, Book of Boba Fett. Over $100 million budget for that super stinker, and it looks worse than anything the CW has ever put out. Point is, this show, I can absolutely see where every single dollar was spent. It is incredible. Like, I actually can't stress that enough. But I don't think this was the perfect season or anything. I love Arcane. I couldn't stop gushing grannies over season 1, and I still am glazing season 2 heavy, like I'm busting out the cream in a big way. But I do actually have some pretty big complaints about it as well. But first, I just want to start with everything that I love about it, which is pretty much everything. Visually, I've already kind of explained to you how I feel about that. But I also just love the way they integrate music into this. I know that's kind of become a critique a lot of people throw against Arcane, how every episode has like a music video to it. I love that. They're super stylized. I also like how the animation changes pretty frequently in episodes. So you have like the show in its normal animated coat of paint, and then all of a sudden, next scene, you've got like a totally different artistic medium to express the story, and it's really cool. I just love that. It just seems like such a love letter to art and animation in general. And in particular, I love the music videos. I really do. I grew up off Naruto AMVs, Dragon Ball Z AMVs, Final Fantasy AMVs, so there's always like this soft spot in my heart for that kind of content, and this show does that. They have some bangin' boner jams that have a really cool, very stylized, over-the-top segment that lasts for like 2 to 3 minutes for the song's duration in the episode. Sometimes at the beginning, sometimes a little more towards the middle. And when they come on, I actually just feel like they're kind of just a nice treat. Yeah, I understand that it can be a bit immersion breaking how all of a sudden you just have a music video dropped on your plate, but I really like it, and I think it conveys a lot of emotions well without ever even just having characters say anything. It conveys emotion through the music and the visuals without ever needing dialogue. I think it does it pretty effectively. I understand why people probably wouldn't like that though, because it can be kind of jarring, but I just wanted to say I like that, and they do have quite a few of those out the wazoo this season, which had me smiling. Another thing I really liked about this is just how much depth they gave to characters that were already pretty fleshed out from season 1. In season 2, they continue down there without ever making the characters feel like they end in a place that doesn't make sense. However, I do think there were a few instances where some characters flip-flopped on things pretty abruptly without like a development to that position. Like the position they end up in makes a lot of sense, but the way they get there felt kind of rushed sometimes. That's not for every character. Like Victor, for example, I thought they did an amazing job where, big spoilers coming, spoiler inbound, big warning, Victor becomes a bad guy. Victor becomes the bad guy, really. But it's not like a cartoonishly evil villain that he becomes. He gradually changes into this character in a way that's an extension from the Victor we already know from season 1. The guy who wants to, help people. The way that he goes from helping people to becoming Machine Jesus and trying to help everybody, and the way that he approaches that help now becomes pretty concerning and a problem for everyone around him. It's no longer necessarily help, it's kind of he's taking control of everyone to deliver a utopia, a perfect world. Still very much the Victor that we know and love from season 1, the guy who has good intentions, but now his intentions are still good, but he's approaching it in a bad way. He's a villain, but he's not just twirling his evil mustache. He is still trying to do what he thinks is right and trying to save people and deliver this perfect world. I'm going to get into a complaint while I'm getting into some praise. Ambessa. I think Ambessa is a great character, and I really liked what they were setting up for her. But in season 2, towards the end of season 2, she makes decisions that I think make no sense for her. Big spoilers. I'm going to get into spoilers talking about this. I've been doing a lot of spoiler talk for my reviews because I think it's just more fun and I like to get my thoughts out about it. So, spoiler warning. I do not like that for some reason Ambessa teams up with Victor after learning that he can create these immortal super soldiers that, what could I do with an army that doesn't fear death? That makes sense. That's logical. What's not logical is that instead of just being satisfied with Victor and like this army that he is able to produce, she instead takes him to the Hex Gate in order to make him even more powerful to convert the entire world into these soldiers. And yet Ambessa thought that she'd be able to control him somehow maybe, or that she'd somehow be exempt from this and somehow would be able to use this for war, which is like the actual antithesis for everything Victor claims he wants to do. Maybe I'm missing something about her motivations during this, but it just really felt nonsensical. I feel like she's been cunning and smart with strategy this entire series. Like she understands all the pieces on the chessboard. Yet for this one, she decided to go through with this plan that would never actually work out in her favor and ultimately leads to her demise. I also think her death is really underwhelming. So the Black Rose became a new threat here, and we learn a bit about Ambessa's connection to Black Rose, and in the fight against Mel and Kate, she ends up in the Black Rose's clutches. It's LeBlanc, I believe, and Mel eventually overpowers her and vanquishes LeBlanc and saves her mother from that realm where she had like a bunch of thorns going around her. And then she dies in Mel's arms. How? Like, she wasn't really trapped by the thorns for that long. Like, it was clear it was draining her, but like it not to like a crazy degree where I felt like, oh, she's about to die. Like, it never felt like she was in danger of dying. And we had already seen Mel go through this. Granted, she is more powerful and has the gift that Ambessa doesn't. But it just felt kind of underwhelming that that's how she goes out. Just smothered to death by silly string in this tendril dimension. It just, I don't know, felt kind of rushed to me. Ultimately, it's not the biggest deal in the world. I had a feeling Ambessa wasn't going to survive season 2, but Mel hits this huge power spike, like she's entering late game here with full build, and I thought that would be like a big moment between her and her mother, but that never really happens. Instead, it's like the fight scene, which is a good fight scene. Every fight scene in season 2, I want to point out, is incredible. Like the fight scenes in season 2 were somehow even better than the ones in season 1. They really outdid themselves with the action here. Fucking hats off, compliments to the chef, because they were fucking cooking with the action. So there's a great action scene here, big action sequence that is fantastic, but then there's never ever this moment where Mel and Ambessa really connect at all. And I guess I was just kind of expecting that and something more to come from it, but it didn't. Instead, it was kind of like an abrupt death for Ambessa there, which, again, ultimately, I don't think she should have ever even been there in the first place. It just didn't make sense to me why she would even team up with Victor for the plan of going to the Hex Gate. I also don't even think Victor needed Ambessa or her army there for his plan to succeed, because his fucking immortal machines, they were unstoppable. Not a single one was defeated except for one, which was by pure luck for the most part, with Mel and Jace being able to stop it. I don't think Ambessa even needed to be recruited by Victor for this task at all. Like, I understand it was mainly a diversion. Didn't really need it, because Victor had a massive army of these immortal super soldier machines that nobody was stopping, and then in the end, what ends up happening is the machines fucking touch everyone's face, leading to them being jacked into the hive mind of the Arcane. So it really just kind of felt like Ambessa died for no real good reason. Just a silly plan on her part, really. But anyway, back to compliments. Vi and Jinx' relationship is great, where Vi knows she needs to stop Jinx. Jinx is beyond salvation at this point. Vi also in love with Kate, and Kate has gone through a tragedy because of Jinx, and now she's blinded by rage, which is straining the relationship with Vi. Like, it's all played very well. But now back to a criticism I have. It felt like that dynamic took a back seat pretty frequently in this season to make room for other things, which is fine because the other things were good. But I also feel like it does a bit of a disservice to the characters when, huge spoiler, there's a moment where Jinx is going through real despair. She bonded with this little girl that she met, Isha, and Isha sacrifices herself to save Jinx and everyone around her in a very, very powerful sequence. Probably my favorite sequence in the entire season, with Isha sacrificing herself to stop Warwick. I thought that was amazing. And then when Jinx is really going through trauma and like suffering, Vi visits her in a jail cell, and Jinx alludes to her breaking the cycle, hinting that she's about to take her own life, and she traps Vi in that cell so she can go do it. I thought that came across pretty clear, and I feel like Vi knew that, but then only a couple of scenes later, after we already saw Jinx make attempts on her life only to be saved by Echo with the Z drive, going back in time, only a couple scenes later, while Vi still doesn't even know if Jinx killed herself or not, Caitlyn visits her in the cell, and they fuck. Like, that just, I feel like that just doesn't make sense, because realistically, with everything that this show has shown us, Vi should have been really focused on checking on Jinx. Like, is she okay? What's she doing? I feel like that should have been the priority, but instead, she just has sex with Caitlyn in that cell after seeing Jinx allude to taking her own life. That just rubbed me the wrong way. I thought that was kind of a lame decision, because they had just spent a few episodes rebuilding this relationship between Vi and Jinx after learning that their father was still alive. He's Warwick, and you can see them starting to bond again. Vi is starting to say we and think about their future together and trying to, save Jinx and rewrite her story. Like, that was the thing she said to Jinx before getting trapped in the cell, and Jinx alluding to killing herself. And then Vi just completely forgets about all of that, doesn't care, disregards it, because Caitlyn shows up, and then it's all about coitus. So yeah, I just didn't really like that very much, to be honest. And I also couldn't help but feel disappointed that the new characters they introduced in Season 2 have fuck all to do. Loris, for example. I thought Loris was going to be a pretty big part of this because he's in so many of the episodes as kind of like a big piece. He doesn't have many lines or anything, but he's always present. He's, part of like the fucking Avengers that they assemble. Him, as well as the guy who doesn't speak. I can't even remember his name because unfortunately he also didn't have a whole lot to do. And then Maddie, who actually did have some stuff to do, so at least she was utilized to some extent, but the other two, they didn't really get to do anything. I understand there's already so many moving pieces and so many characters to keep track of and care about, but why even bother introducing them and trying to like hype them up if you're not going to use them? Like Loris, for example, he didn't even have anything to do in the final fucking episode. Like, he had a moment that I thought was going to be like his heroic triumph. Like, okay, this is what Loris's character has been building to. This is going to be his big moment to save the day. And then he gets shot by 3 arrows and just dies instantly. So he never even does anything. And then the guy who doesn't speak still doesn't speak, and he's about to have his big triumphant hero moment, and then the bomb he places doesn't go off. And then he gets captured. At least he survives, but I mean, come on. Why even have these characters, introduce them and hype them up? And not even let them have any kind of payoff or a hero moment or anything. They might as well have just been stormtroopers because they contributed literally nothing in that final battle at all. So they never actually were utilized. So I just don't even understand why they'd introduce them the way they did if they didn't have any kind of plan for them or any kind of like moment for them. Like, they couldn't even just let the bomb go off, man. Like, come on. Or let Loris fire that triumphant shot. It was just kind of sad, really. But that, again, is not the biggest deal in the world because they're not huge characters, not like the focal point of the season or anything, just something I wanted to mention. I think every character that is an important one only got better in Season 2. I don't think any characters went backwards, especially Singed. Singed was a standout for me because he is like your quintessential evil mad scientist. But he also has a motivation that makes sense for why he does these things. And he had a line that actually stuck with me where he said, "Why does anyone do things that others deem unthinkable? For love." And I was like, damn, that's kind of deep. And then you learn why he's doing these experiments that he's been conducting. And love is kind of like a prevailing theme throughout Season 2. It's a very big theme to Season 2 overall, and I think it's executed super well across the board. Not just with the obvious characters, but even characters you wouldn't expect at all. I think it's just done very well. I really did love Season 2. I thought it was another absolute slapper. Obviously, I do have like some criticisms of it, as I've been stating, but overall, I really, really, really enjoyed it. I was fucking glued to it. It's 5:30 a.m. right now because I couldn't help but just binge Act 3. So it's definitely a season I really liked. Now I want to get to my biggest complaint of the season. So many things are just vague and left kind of open-ended and ambiguous, which sometimes is fine. Like, I don't mind that. But in Season 2, I really felt like it was an egregious amount of things where I just had no fucking clue what actually happened. Like, there are some major character deaths that I'm not even sure are even deaths or exactly what's going on with that character or why certain things were happening the way they did. There was just so much guesswork that needed to be done to connect things. At least, I mean, maybe I'm just a bumbling fucking idiot, which I know I am, but I feel like I was paying very close attention. There were just so many things where I asked myself, why? Or what the fuck was that? Especially at the ending. So many things at the end of Season 2 leave more questions than answers. And I'm assuming that those questions will have answers if they do a Season 3, which I really hope they do. I'd love to see a Season 3, especially since they teased Swain, and I really like Swain in League of Legends. So I'm hoping they do more Arcane. I think they have something remarkable on their hands here, and they have a lot of really cool stuff that they've set up. And I would really like answers to those questions that Season 2 has left me with. Also, I just have to mention this. There are some major character deaths in here that I think just get brushed over way too quickly and don't get the respect they deserve. Big spoiler warning. Okay, Heimerdinger's death.
Heimerdinger self-sacrifices in order to send Echo back to the proper timeline to get him to the right dimension after the Arcane sucks them up or the anomaly sucks them up and spits them out into the wrong timeline. And they, build everything. And as they're about to go back in time, Heimerdinger gets out of the bubble and he connects the thing, and then he just deatomizes. He poofs away. He might be alive, but I'm pretty sure it's him sacrificing himself for Echo, his pupil, because that kind of completes the Heimerdinger arc. So I'm assuming that's his send-off. And it's a fine send-off, but his death is never acknowledged after that. Echo doesn't say anything about him. No other character says anything about him. It's just, he's like forgotten, which I just think is a real shame. Anyway, though, I'll stop yapping about it. Overall, I think Arcane Season 2 is great. I think Arcane as a whole is one of the most impressive animated series that's ever been made. I think it is a must-watch. I really think it is something special that everyone should experience. So, that's really about it. So, yeah. I went into Season 2 of Squid Game with pretty low expectations. I was just expecting a lazy cash grab. But it's kind of late for that since it's been 3 years since the first season became a global sensation. And with the way the world moves these days, 3 years may as well be prehistoric. Point is, though, I expected it to just be bad. But it's not. It is actually good. Now, I do need to spoil a little something here. There's no Jim Wool, which is a damn shame. That's a big missed opportunity because Jim Wool is almost synonymous with Squid Game at this point. He is a natural disaster, the devil himself in the Roblox Squid Game circuit, and I really thought that they would tip their hat to Jim Wool in Season 2 here, but they did not. What they did do, though, is not just do the same thing again, which is what I expected. What I really thought Season 2 would be is they just do nothing but games. The same games and then maybe some new games. I just thought it'd just be nothing but games out the wazoo like we're playing fucking Mario Party. But it's not, which was a pleasant surprise. There is a huge emphasis on games. Pretty much anytime some big moment happens, it's part of a game. Like even when it's them hunting the recruiter down, it ends in a game. So there is a lot of that, and they're all good, and they are different. There is only one return game. So that was nice. I once again expected them just to do the greatest hits again. Now that's what I call Squid Game Volume 2, basically. Fucking Kids Bop Squid Game, the second rodeo. They didn't. That's nice. Now, I don't think Season 2 has a chance of reaching the same heights that Season 1 did. That was lightning in a bottle, in the truest sense of the word. It came out at an unprecedented time where everyone was inside, and there was nothing like this out. Of course, there's still a ton of hype for Season 2, but I don't think it's going to reach that crazy, set the world ablaze popularity that Season 1 had. Though I'm sure it will reignite the Roblox Squid Game circuit, and God rest all the souls that cross paths with Jim Wool. Anyway, though, I do think Season 2 here is good. Very good, even. I went into it expecting it to kind of be dog shitty. Nope, not the case. So, Season 2 is much more of like almost a revenge action show than it is a show about survival by any means necessary through these depraved games. Here, we now see a very different Gi-hun, who, I still don't know if I'm saying that name right. I don't remember if it's Ji-hun or Gi-hun. I'm not entirely sure. Sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. But we see him in a totally different way. He even has his own John Wick arsenal. He is using that money that he won, every fucking penny of it, to try and track down the recruiter so he can go to the games and tear it to pieces. Shut it down for good. He no longer has the red hair that we saw at the end of Season 1. I suppose the director said, all right, I was playing a bit of a goof on you. We'll get serious again. So that goes away within the first 3 minutes of Episode 1. And we see that he has spent the last 3 years training with the sole focus of stopping these games. So he's really good with guns now, and he is like a very confident leader. So he has people that are searching every subway station every day for 2 years during the summer looking for the recruiter, and he has this network
and even gets connections to some military people that will help him try and stop these games. And it's a really cool evolution of the character from season 1 that feels pretty natural with all of the trauma he went through and everything that he experienced. Him being kind of just broken, but so focused on taking that anger out on the people that caused it is just a really compelling and natural evolution of what we saw from season 1. And the villain here, the front man that we knew from season 1, is so good. He is the perfect counter to our hero. And he plays with that, saying like, so you want to play the hero, I'll show you the consequences, and boy howdy does he ever. I'm not going to get into spoilers for this one. This one is way too fresh to get into spoilers, but I do have a couple of complaints that I won't be able to dive too deep into in a moment. But I do think on the whole, this was much better than I expected and just a really solid season 2 for something that I thought shouldn't have even had a season 2 in the first place. Usually when you have a show like Squid Game, I feel like it's best left as just that, glorious triumph in the moment that it was, instead of trying to overstay its welcome, extending it to a season 2 just because it was popular. It's always lackluster when that happens. In this case, though, I really think it was handled well. It seems very self-aware in what people expected for season 2, and it gives you that, and then some. So, the iconic red light, green light, that's the first game. So, the show brings you in with the same game, making you think, oh, he's just going to be playing the same shit again. And it even has similar characters that were introduced in season 1. We have characters that are very close to them in season 2, but they go in very different directions and serve a very different purpose. So it's a nice spin on character traits that we saw in season 1 and got fed a bit in season 2 that drastically change in the direction they go. For example, one of Ji-hun's friends is in this game again, but not the same kind of friend we saw in season 1. The next thing I want to mention that might be a big spoiler, but I don't think it is because I'm pretty sure it's in the trailers, but just in case there's a spoiler warning. Do you remember how in season 1 the big twist was that the old man that was with Ji-hun for most of the games was actually the man behind the curtain the whole time, the fucking puppet master that put all the games together? Well, season 2 knows that people are expecting some kind of twist like that, and they play with that expectation by putting the front man in the same position the old man was. But they let you know right away that it's the front man, because we saw him in season 1, and in the very first game, we get to see the front man come into the fold. He's playing the game, and we know that he is the big bad, but nobody in the game does. Ji-hun doesn't know. So that's a really fun way of spinning this, where now the viewer knows who this is, but nobody else does. So you're going through these games and you are watching him participate, and he's playing the games legit. He's not cheating or doing anything shady or underhanded where he's like going off screen and somehow miraculously survives like we saw in season 1 with the old man. He is like even desperate to survive in some of them. Like, I don't want to get into spoilers on how some of the games go or just spoil what some of the games are, but it really seems like he was putting his life on the line, and that's kind of a theme that they drove home within the very first episode with the recruiter, where the recruiter plays Russian roulette with Ji-hun, and they play by the rules. No cheating, nothing that's going to get them vac banned, no manipulation or underhanded shady tactics, just all textbook, by the book, rule following. Which I think is just really cool and helps to flesh out the theme of the season even more so. So I thought they executed that really well. Now let's get into some of the things I didn't like all that much. Some of the games I just didn't think were that interesting. In the first season, I don't think all the games were hits either. There was definitely some shits. Like they weren't all slam dunks. There were some misses. But here, I felt like some of them were just kind of throwaway, as if the stakes weren't even really there. The second game, for example, there is like this big shocking moment where it's not the same game that we saw in season 1, but the game that replaced it was just like a mishmash of 5 different small games put together, basically like little party trick games almost, and it just didn't even feel that tense. I didn't get the same feeling watching that, where it's like, oh, the characters are in real peril now. This is going to be a super hard one to accomplish, where there's actual dread on all of the characters for even seeing this game and having to play in it. I just didn't get that, really. The game that followed it, I thought, was better. It was definitely a lot more intense. It was able to build a lot more tension and keep things like fucking, chaotic. But it just felt like the games in Season 2 played almost too much of a background role. I was hoping it wouldn't be the sole focus of Season 2 where it's just the games, but I'm pretty surprised at just how little the games actually play a role in Season 2. It's not a focal point, honestly, which I think is going to be disappointing to a lot of people who just like Squid Game for that, the death games. Season 2 has much more of an emphasis on just plain old simple action. Just some lead spraying, some fights, fucking, it's more action and more about revenge and trying to stop the games by any means necessary. And that usually comes in the form of a firefight. So the games don't play a huge role here. The next thing I didn't really like is there's an entire subplot with that team that Ji-hun puts together where they are constantly trying to find where he's been taken. And every time it cuts to them, it's like useless. It feels like we're just watching filler because they're not getting any closer to finding him. They're just constantly on this wild goose chase and nothing's really getting accomplished there at all. Now, it does set up a very interesting character that we get introduced to in Season 2 that has some very... it's going to be a spoiler if I get too deep into it. They introduce a character that is clearly going to play a big role in Season 3. That's another thing. Season 2 is basically just a setup for Season 3. I mean, it's more than that, obviously, but everything in Season 2 is building for Season 3. So there is a character that's introduced here in that side plot that is doing some real fishy shit that is definitely going to play a big role in the next part. But just, I can only talk about part 2 because that's what's out. Anytime it cut to them, it was just boring. They were not accomplishing anything at all. It just felt like wasted time. I can pretty much summarize an hour's worth of that side plot with just a few sentences. We need to check this island. This might be where the games are being played. Alright, we checked the island. No good. We'll cross that one off and check the next one. Then they get to the next island. Jeepers, it wasn't that island either. Let's check the next one. That is everything that happens every time they're on screen without fail, and it doesn't really get deeper than that, except for that one character I mentioned that starts to do some more things that are clearly going to be a big deal later on. But as of now, they're not. It's just, try another, try another, try another. Eventually we'll find the island. Try another. And they just go on this deep sea adventure of just going to fucking island after island after island to no avail. So it's just, it feels just really useless. The other thing I also just didn't like, and this is less about the actual content of Season 2 and more so just this trend with dividing things into parts. Since this is clearly part 1 of 2 parts where Season 2 is really a lot of setup for Season 3, there are just so many things in here and so many characters that feel highly underutilized with no actual point that they get to in this show that feels like it fits. So they introduce one of the shooters for the Squid Game. We get to see from their perspective someone who actually kills the contestants in there. We get to see a little about them outside of the game and inside of the game and the things they go through, which is a cool concept and something that's a fun thing to explore because you get to see a different side of it, even though you did get to see a lot of it in Season 1. This is now seeing it from someone who is actively killing the people in the game. And that character, we do learn a little bit about, not a ton, but we get a bit, and we see that they're going through some shit while doing this job, but the character doesn't really do anything in the season. It's just, we get like glimpses of a different perspective every now and then. But there's nothing narratively that we get from the character that pushes anything forward or really changes anything. It feels like it's clearly going to matter a lot in Season 3, but that's what I'm talking about. When you're just breaking something up into parts, you get things that are half-baked like that. and that just always kind of bothers me a bit. I'm really getting tired of the trend of breaking things in half, because then you only get half of like the whole package that you need to now wait X amount of time for, probably like a year. It just feels disjointed. I'm getting really over that trend. I'd rather just wait for the whole thing to come out. Because usually when you do a season, like a full season, things wrap themselves up and storylines reach some level of closure. Of course, they don't need to be fully finished by any means if you're going for more seasons that are planned. Like, I think Game of Thrones always did a good job before, of course, it absolutely shit the bed with season 7 and 8. But it always did a good job of a whole season feeling like, oh, you got a whole complete package that is going to have more going forward. Whereas in a case like this, you just feel like you got half of the package and you have to wait for the next one to get the whole thing. So that's just starting to bother me a little bit. That's not even like exclusive to Squid Game Season 2 or anything, but it is just getting to be a bit of a nuisance. Like House of the Dragon is the most egregious example, where the most recent season is actually just putting chess pieces on the board and not using them. You have to wait for the next season for those pieces to do anything. So fucking like nothing really moves in Season 2 at all. And it's not nearly as bad in Squid Game Season 2 by any means, but there is just obvious things that are just setup pieces that don't actually contribute anything in this season, but will in the next. So it just, again, feels half-baked at the moment. But I know when the whole thing is out, we're going to see the whole vision for it and the role they play. But overall, I do think Season 2 was very solid, much better than I expected it to be. So I definitely do think it's worth watching, and I'm really looking forward to the final season of Squid Game. Assuming, of course, Season 3 is the final season. They might just milk this cow for many, many moons to come. There's probably going to be tons of spin-offs. There's already been one spin-off, too. So they already are showing a track record of having Squid Game as like a flagship IP, but I have to imagine this next season will probably be the last one. I don't even know how they could stretch it further. But anyway, I thought it was good. That's about it. See ya.
It's 3:30 a.m. I just finished the finale to Invincible Season 3. I couldn't wait to watch it, so I got there the second that it dropped, kicking my feet in my chair, really excited. It was like midnight release for Halo 3 all over again. I needed to get it instantly, and I'm glad I did. This was an extremely strong finale. It really feels like this is where all of the budget went. We're going to get into some things that I thought Season 3 was a little weak on. Spoiler alert, it's the animation. There's a lot of cope with people saying, no, the animation was actually really good for Season 3. Don't listen to that. That's like someone trying to convince you that a crypto meme coin is a good idea for an investment. That is just downright fraudulent. So, Invincible Season 3 I think is extraordinary. I think the writing is probably some of the best in the series so far. At least I personally feel that way. I really like a lot of the characters they brought back. I'm going to try and avoid spoilers to the best of my ability, but one of my big complaints I cannot talk about without getting into spoilers, but I'll give you a fair warning for that. This season had so many moving parts, and I think all of it was handled exceptionally well. The relationship between Mark and Eve, Debbie now moving on from Omni-Man and getting a new partner that's coming into her life and trying to explore what does that look like, because it's not Omni-Man. This is just a guy. This is like super normal dude man. And now he's coming into this family with two super-powered individuals, the two strongest heroes on the planet, Invincible and Oliver. Omni-Man's other son, Oliver, is now this kid with an extraordinary amount of strength, and he seems to think similar to his dad in certain parts when it comes to life and death. And, maybe it's more effective to kill the bad guys. I happen to agree. I think it is more effective if they were killing some of the bad guys, but that is a big prevailing theme throughout the season about teaching Oliver no, killing is not good. But also, maybe it kind of is in certain cases with some of these bad guys that keep showing up and fucking our butts. You know what I mean? So it's a really well-executed balance of this. Rexplode, he's gone through this crazy, come-to-Jesus character arc where now he's like a really charming dude who's turned his whole life around, and now he's got a love interest of his own, and it's that relationship that gets quite a lot of screen time, and all of it is just done really well. Typically when you have this many, buns in the oven, this much meatball in the spaghetti, things get a little lost. Not here.
It feels like everything got the perfect amount of attention and tender love and care put into it. Because at no point did it feel flat or underdeveloped. But of course, it's not just about the characters and their relationships. You know, we're not watching fucking Young and the Restless here. It is a show about superheroes and supervillains, and there's a lot of clashing here. We even get more Alan, we get more Omni-Man, and we actually get some fucking Battle Beast. I become a big Battle Beast guy. Very cool character. And it's a lot of fun, and I think they do a great job, in spite of the really weak animation. I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. There's a lot of people that are going to try and scream at you that the animation's actually really good. It's just people that are getting in your ear, feeding you a bunch of fucking phony baloney lies that the animation's bad. It's not. Don't believe them. No, don't believe them that's telling you that. The animation is noticeably worse than season 1 and 2. There are so many times in this show where a fight is going on, and it's just kind of a still image. Does this look familiar? It's like a fucking flipbook animation for some of these fights. Not all of them. There are moments in the first 6 episodes where there are good fight sequences that are animated well, but it's not the majority of them. Oh my god, there are some super stinker moments. I don't want to open up any wounds here from people repressing the trauma of some terrible animated fight sequences, but there's one scene where Robot is standing still doing this, and they just have like green blobs that'll come out occasionally. Like he's just dribbling out green projectiles and just not moving like this while fighting. And it's not like he's like like in the background doing that, where, you know, you can get away with someone doing that and it's not a big deal. Like, who's gonna give a fuck? He is literally in the forefront. It is focused on him, and he's just doing this, bing, 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 with some like green projectiles coming out. There are a lot of bad animated moments, and then there's like another really noteworthy one. There is a new villain who's being transported, and he overcomes the holds, and the car that was transporting him gets thrown off the bridge, and then it's like this really almost like Transformers Beast Wars from the late 90s, like CGI truck that's like flipping around a little bit. Like, it looks like a Nintendo 64 cutscene. It's bad. There are a lot of moments where the animation is bad. Just face the facts. It doesn't ruin the season by any means, and it's very clear that the emphasis for animation was put into the last 2 episodes. Episodes 7 and 8, they go hard, and it is so much better, to the point where it just makes me feel like, man, why couldn't we just have more of that for the first 6 too? Like, this show is extremely popular. Surely Amazon has enough money in the vault to allocate to big animation. We saw it in season 1 already. Like, come the fuck on. But anyway, that's the only like glaring issue with the season, is just how weak it is when it comes to its animation. It's a real fucking shame, because it deserves to be, you know, top tier, top notch animation. It is so good. You know a show is good when you start to argue with people about character motivations and like who's right, who's wrong within the context of the show. Like Cecil versus Mark, where there was like a big debate I'd have with chat about like, who's right? Is Mark right? Or is Cecil right? Because Cecil does some unethical means to save the world, but Cecil's heart is always, we're saving the world no matter what it takes. And he has a really, what I believe to be, profound line of, we can either be the good guys or the guys that save the world. And I think that's really powerful. He wants to save the world, and he's willing to do some shady shit for it, such as having a very bad guy come back and start doing some questionable experiments to create some countermeasures to extremely powerful threats. I'm trying not to spoil things. And Mark views that as the ultimate irredeemable evil. These people need to be locked up behind bars because they're bad people. And Cecil, when confronted with this, even calls out Mark on the hypocrisy, because Mark is right. Like, he's had a conversation with Oliver about like how people haven't forgiven their father for what he did on this planet. And like how Mark is starting to come to terms with like, he still loves his father and to a certain extent forgives him. But Mark can't extend that same level of forgiveness where he can see like villains turning things around to try and save the world. Like, they don't get that chance. Only Mark's dad gets that chance because Mark says so. And Cecil calls him out on the hypocrisy, and I think it's a really strong point. I think Cecil is more in the right than Mark in that regard. And things, of course, change throughout the season as Mark gets more going on and as Cecil gets more going on. But I just think that they do such a strong job in the writing that having these arguments is really enjoyable. So I just really love season 3. Now, big spoilers, huge spoilers. This is your warning. Big spoilers, because I'm talking about the finale in particular. Okay, you know how I just said Cecil is my favorite character? They fucking butchered him in the very finale. Very end of the finale. Cecil, throughout this entire show, has been a very smart guy. I think he hasn't always gone about things in the best way, such as like what he put in Mark's head. Like, him putting it there makes sense after everything they've went through, but the way that he conveys that idea to Mark, I think, is extremely inefficient, and there was absolutely a way where he could have Mark still be on his side if he was able to just explain it better. But he just puts up this like huge callous front and doesn't really elaborate. Of course, Mark didn't give him a ton of opportunities, but I just think Cecil has always made smart decisions for the greater good. And he hasn't done anything that I believe is just detrimental or super stupid. He just hasn't been always optimal when explaining or going about his goal. Until the very end. After Mark defeats Conquest, Cecil has him trapped in a huge, impenetrable, unbreakable container of metal. And he keeps Cecil's body there so that way he can regenerate, so that Cecil can interrogate him so he can learn about the Viltrumite weaknesses and how many others might show up. That is a complete betrayal of Cecil's character. I believe that is a full-blown assassination of the Cecil that we've come to know and love from the show. There is no way, with everything he has seen and everything he's been through, and him even blatantly stating that this is the strongest Viltrumite they've seen, that he thought a fucking giant hunk of metal would be enough to contain him. He didn't plant anything in his head. He didn't cut off his limbs or anything to prevent him from flying away. He just let him fully regenerate in this block of fucking metal, with nothing else as like a failsafe, and expects him not to break out. He's going to break out, it's very clear. He's not going to get any information out of this. I even had to look this up because I thought maybe the show did this because it's so stupid, not a left field for Cecil's character, because this is just dumb. Everyone knows, and Cecil would know because he has dealt with this shit. There is no way he would think that metal would be enough to contain him. So I looked it up. It's the same in the comics. I am begging, absolutely begging, that the writers change this. Like, going into season 4, maybe Cecil mentions that he has like a device implanted in his head, and like then something goes wrong with the device and that's how he breaks out. But I am just begging, like, you can still have him break out, whatever. Like, I can understand an argument for why Cecil wouldn't just like dispose of Conquest's body because he could find some use for it. I thought it would be like another, drone soldier. But I could see value in why he'd keep it there to try and learn as much as he can about the Viltrumites. But I don't think there's any possible argument you could use to justify his means of trying to like contain him. No failsafes, no nothing at all with the most powerful creature they have ever seen. That is not in line with Cecil's character. You can have him break out, fine. But at least write something in there that Cecil tried to think of absolutely everything. The implanted device that worked on Mark so he knows it works on Viltrumite. Cutting off his arms and legs, but somehow he regenerated them. Something to try and explain that Cecil did everything, and this was truly like a freak thing that Conquest escaped. Because as it stands right now, when Conquest inevitably escapes, I'm going to think Cecil is the biggest bumbling fucking idiot character in the show, which ruins everything that it is set up so far for Cecil. And there's nothing he can ever do to redeem that, at least not to me, because this is such a like catastrophic blunder that is so out of line for Cecil's character. Like, again, him keeping Conquest is in line with his character. But doing absolutely nothing besides just putting him in a sarcophagus to contain him, that doesn't fly. That does not work for what Cecil has showcased throughout this whole show. So, I am really, really hoping they change that, because I think that super duper sucks. I think that is trash. Absolute garbage. Anyway, I'll stop ranting and raving about that. But that is a huge complaint of mine at the very end there. I just think that is bad writing with what they've done with Cecil there. Anyway, though, I loved season 3. Absolutely glued to it. Another banger. I think Invincible is still a must-watch show, and I cannot wait for more. So yeah, that's really about it. See ya. The Minecraft movie came out today, and for the first time in a very, very long time, I was the only person in a theater for this screening. I was the only poor soul subjecting themselves to the torture of the Minecraft movie on debut here. I cannot remember the last time this happened where there was nobody else in a theater with me. Like, last year I saw something called Bagman, which I guarantee none of you watching this have ever even heard of. It was this complete throwaway, probably AI-generated horror movie that I went and saw on debut, and there was still like at least 15 people there. It's fucking 5:30 on Minecraft Movie Day, a sacred holiday, and I am the only one in this theater. I'm not exaggerating. There's 0 people here except for me. I could start yelling and screaming, I could start doing, and there's nobody here to hear it or see it. I felt almost ashamed. A 30-year-old man sitting in darkness watching the Minecraft movie all by his lonesome. My God. And the movie's not good, by the way. However, this movie doesn't feel like it's some lifeless husk put together by suits that are unfamiliar with the property they're adapting, like with the Halo TV series. It really does feel like everyone that worked on this film is very familiar not only with Minecraft, but the Minecraft community. There's a lot of references, there's imagery, and there's Easter eggs for things that the Minecraft community will absolutely recognize and really appreciate, which I think is a very cool thing. But unfortunately, the movie itself just doesn't do much in general. It really reminds me of what video game movies used to be back in like the early 2000s, before they figured out that they can make video game movies good. I understand it's a movie for children, but that doesn't mean that it has to suck. Like, it doesn't have to be terrible. And I understand I'm not like the biggest Minecraft gamer either. I'm very familiar with the game, I've played it a lot, but it's not my favorite game by any means, but still, I would expect to go into this movie and at least be entertained and understand that it's just supposed to be lighthearted, silly, and fun. It's just not fun. Like, I was so bored, I fell asleep twice. Not for a long period of time, I just kind of dozed off twice. A good chunk of the film feels like it's kind of just a tour of Minecraft, but on the big screen. It's clear they understand the game, it's clear that they've played Minecraft, because they spend a lot of time just explaining game mechanics in this movie, and then just saying things from the game. Chicken jockey! All that memes and shit. It's not as egregious throughout the whole film, but there are a lot of instances of that. Like, I really just don't see what all there is to love about this film, even if you're 7 years old still drinking warm milk out of a sippy cup, or the biggest diehard Minecraft fan. I just think there's so little to like here, because most of the film really feels like it's more of just a demonstration of what Minecraft looks like on the big screen, and not much else. Like, I guess it's great for people that just want to point at the screen and be like, oh, I recognize that! That's a villager! I've played the game! Redstone, I know how it works! Like, because that's kind of what the film does. It just takes you from one of those to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, on and on and on, of just being like, you recognize this from the game, don't you? It's in the movie. And this is from the game, and it's in the movie. Like, there's barely even a story here. It's like the simplest, weakest story they could cobble together as just a vessel to push you to Jack Black explaining Minecraft mechanics over and over again. And all the characters in the movie don't really have any depth or anything. They're just like the flattest characters you could possibly put in here. They're just learning about playing Minecraft and not much else. Like, there's no real tension, there's no real stakes. At no point I can't imagine anyone would feel invested in what's happening. And I know I've reached unk status where maybe I just don't understand the appeal, but the movie tries so hard to be memeable, even outside of like the Flint and Steel type shit. There's like 5 musical numbers, I don't know, maybe like 4, where Jack Black has like 4 different songs, all of which feel like they're aimed to try and get, you know, the kids up and out of their seat dancing to the Minecraft tracks and shit, which I didn't really like at all. Like, Jack Black as Steve, whatever, I don't care that much, as long as, like, it was entertaining. I just don't think it was. Jack Black doesn't even really play a character. He doesn't really, like, he's not Steve, as stupid as that sounds. He's basically, like, your tutorial guide. Like, Jack Black in this film is the NPC that would walk you through how to play Minecraft if you booted that shit up right now. If they had, like, a Microsoft Clippy version of it. That would be Jack Black's character. That's really all he does in the film. And then he has, like, a couple of, like, I believe supposed to be self-aware silly lines such as first we mine, then we craft, and shit like that, which, whatever. And the movie tries to also be like, you know, with it. So there's a character named General Chungus, and his whole shtick is he talks very wacky, and he says at one point, really sorry, but I'm gonna have to unalive you now. Okay, General Chungus. Haha. For as much as I disliked this movie, not having fun watching it, I know this film is going to be extremely successful, and I am beyond confident that the target demographic, children and like really huge Minecraft enthusiasts, are gonna go ballistic for it. Because they're not really looking for a movie per se, like a good movie per se. They want to see something that they love in a different way. And Minecraft movie does offer that. You do see Minecraft in a different way, and it takes the mechanics and puts them in a movie. And I know it's gonna be really hype for a lot of people. I am not in that bucket. That was not hype for me. I wanted something fun to watch. Like, it has been proven many times in recent memory that you can do really good video game movies. The Super Mario Bros. Movie, for example. I don't know why they wouldn't follow suit there. That was still very true to the games while also being a really good movie in its own right. This ruins the magic to a certain extent of, like, Minecraft. Like, there's nothing creative about it. They just take some humans and haphazardly throw them into the Minecraft world. And also, immediately in the intro, they just fucking blast you with so much exposition and immediately just say, like, and then they go to Minecraft. Now they're in Minecraft. It's like, whoa, okay. I feel like there was definitely a more enjoyable way of getting to that point. Now, this movie does do something really well, I think. And that's the visuals of Minecraft. Like, I actually think all of the animation here with the Minecraft characters, the big bad, even the way that the characters fight each other, looks good. Like, it actually looks really good. I thought the world looked cool. When it falls apart is when you take live action people and you have to green screen them into that world. Then it just looks like shit, which is one of the huge critiques people had for all the trailers because it looked really lackluster. Sorry to say, in the film, there's a lot of instances where it looks really lackluster because of having to just put them in front of a green screen where they're running at the screen while some Minecraft stuff is happening behind them with flaming arrows coming their way and shit. Like, that's just lame. I feel like would have been significantly more entertaining if it had all just been in that style with no live action. I really think that would have been a lot better. And one other thing I think is good and that I appreciated is that I really felt that Jack Black and Jason Momoa really tried to bring a special kind of flair to their characters. They didn't just phone it in with a lazy performance and go through the motions. To me, it felt like they really did try to breathe life into it and make it fun. And for me, it didn't work because I just wasn't entertained by the film, but it's not for lack of trying on their part. But anyway, yeah, not the worst video game movie that's ever been made, but definitely not a good one either. That's about it. So, yeah. I don't think anyone out there is surprised to hear that the Until Dawn movie is not good. But I do think you'll be surprised to hear that I'm getting a little haircut soon. Nothing like drastic or anything, just trimming some of the dead ends, which I haven't done in a long time. But anyway, about the Until Dawn movie, from the very first trailer it was clear this is going to have pretty much nothing in common with the game that it's based on. I've been screaming it and creaming it till I've been blue in the dick, but if you're going to be making a live-action adaptation of a video game, you've got to at least try and make it somewhat respectful to the source material. There's endless examples to pull from of movies and shows that completely miss the mark because they just decide that they know what's best for the property and have no idea what the game that it's based on is even about, like the Halo TV series. I'm not here to just regurgitate that. I only mention that because Until Dawn falls victim to the same thing here. However, I will say, to this movie's credit, the concept they come up with, while not really present in the game, is still a fun idea, where these characters, they go into this spooky house and they've got to survive until dawn. And they just keep getting killed over and over and over again. And they try and piece together the mystery while trying to survive the night so they can finally break the loop. It's more of like a Groundhog Day or like a Happy Death Day kind of thing, similar. Not really like the Until Dawn game, where if you've played it, you know you don't just endlessly retry, dying over and over again. In fact, it's all about your choices trying to keep characters alive, and if you fuck up, if you shit the bed, you could permanently lose the character. That is not really present here. The only thing they borrowed from the game is the idea of the butterfly effect. But how about for people that haven't played the game? Will they like this? I think they'll like half of it. And admittedly, I liked half of it too. It's the first half of the film where it does try and do its own thing. They actually have Peter Stormare, I think that's how you say his name, in this movie in a role. He was in the game too. I thought that was cool. He's not really utilized that much. I'm gonna have to get into spoilers. Spoiler warning. Alright, now that that's out of the way. The first half of this movie is actually enjoyable. Like, it is a fun film. So they spend the first half and there's recognizable things about it from the game, but if you haven't played the game, I think you'll probably just think that it's cool. They go here and now they're stuck in this loop where they're getting chased by all kinds of different bad things. Sometimes it's a slasher movie where they're being hunted by this basically fucking Bane, and he's like slaughtering them left and right, and then they reset, and then this time it's not that guy wandering around, like fucking Jason Voorhees. Then it's more of a supernatural thing where they're getting like flown around and, possessed and shit like that. And then there's another one where it's more of like almost like SCPs that they're being hunted by. Like, it's cool that it kept switching up what was hunting and killing them. The deaths were satisfying, sometimes even just shocking, but like in a silly way. So like one of the times they just start randomly combusting, just spontaneous combustion. And I mean that in the truest textbook definition. They just start spontaneously combusting like fucking meat balloons that are popping out of nowhere, which I thought, like, the theater actually laughed at that. And I'm sure they knew when they were making that scene that it would be silly and fun. And that's when the movie was at its best, when it kept doing these like wacky character deaths, being creative with the character deaths, and they were still getting like little tidbits of lore about what they're stuck in and what they need to do to get out of it, about needing to survive until dawn, otherwise they're trapped forever in like a permanent loop. They become part of the night. That's when the movie was at its best, and it was enjoyable. Yes, there were cheap jump scares. Obviously there's going to be cheap jump scares, but the characters are absolutely horrible from start to finish. The characters are so one-dimensional. Like, they only have like one character trait, and that's it. And that's all they ever do. And now, let's get to the second half, where this movie completely falls apart, and I think even if you haven't played the game, you're going to hate the second half. This movie gets to a point where I think they just got really tired of making it, or maybe they started running out of budget. So they do like 3 nights, and it's fun. Like, it's a fun little horror flick for those 3 nights. They're showing you all these deaths and the things that they're starting to learn. And then, after the 3rd night, it skips to the 13th night, the last night. So it literally just goes, like, here's a death, and then they wake up, and one of the characters says, how many nights has it been? How long have I been out? You've been out for 5 nights. And then one of the other characters, Nina's like, no, it's actually been 13. Check the book. So they check, confirm it's been 13 nights. No one ever survives past 13, so if they die here, that's the end. That's game over. So it literally just skips through all of, like, the interesting shit it was doing to get to the very end, so that way it goes to a glacial halt. Like, now all of a sudden nothing is happening because it's their last night, and it is a slog. Holy fuck, it's horrible. And they had the chutzpah to have one of the characters be like, oh wait, didn't I record something earlier? Because one of the characters, Abe, had like recorded when they first got there. He checks his phone, it turns out he recorded all the other nights. So then you get all the shit you saw in the trailer with like that bug in Clover's face, and then like that giant, like, Spirited Away guy who's going like this at the camera. Well, all of that was recorded on his phone, and we get like a little montage of it for like 45 seconds. You don't actually see any of that throughout the film. So instead, it fast forwards through all of that. The only thing that was interesting about it, to get to the second half, where it tries desperately to throw this Hail Mary of somehow loosely tying it into the Until Dawn lore, like the game lore, and it does it really, really bad. If you haven't played the game, maybe you won't be insulted by this, but having played the game, man, why did you even try with what they did here? Also, on their final night, pretty much everything they had learned meant nothing. Like, this was never a gradual buildup of how they solved it and how they outsmarted and then survived. What ends up happening on the last night is they look at those videos, and then the final video there has one of the characters being like, I'm going to follow him, because Peter Stormare came through and she was filming him, and I guess he didn't see her, even though she was kind of just like out in the open filming it, literally like vlogging it. And so she sets the phone down and then follows him, and that was like the last video, and they're like, all right, let's go follow her. But they just like randomly start stumbling across the right way to go, not because they learned anything or adapted or evolved or got better at handling the horrors. They just got really lucky and conveniently just ass over tomato cans fell into the right path. Like, even finding her who followed that guy, she didn't get very far, but they happened to stumble across her. So, like, there was never any emotional moments at all in this film. Everything was so fucking flat. But the thing it was doing well with, like, the creative deaths and, like, being over the top and silly with the deaths, they completely abandoned for the entire second half. So then it's just really boring. And then all of its problems really start to show, because now all of a sudden it's trying new things that don't work. Because it's not building tension. You now know these characters, they might die for real, but they're not even really playing with that. It's very clear they're not going to. And the final confrontation with Dr. Hill, that's Peter, is so comical. So, you remember how I mentioned spontaneous combustion? Well, what causes that, the catalyst, is drinking the water there. So in the final showdown with the big bad, the big villain, Peter, he shows up with a cup of coffee. First of all, he's drinking the coffee with no problem. It's already been established the water makes you blow up. Why isn't he blowing up? I kind of mental gymnastics this explanation in my head, so take it with a grain of salt, but I just cooked up the theory that maybe boiling the water cooks out the explosive elements of it, or he completely leaves the town, like goes across state lines to get clean water and then brews his coffee there and brings it back. Anyway, Clover is talking with him and he's monologuing, the most cliche shit ever. He's monologuing and he's being all over the top and exaggerated with it. So he's turning his back to her and he's like monologuing at a wall. Trauma. It's a very powerful fear. Very powerful. And our main character Clover notices a leaky pipe dripping water, so she moves his coffee cup over it, gets some of the water in it, moves it back, and then he's done monologuing, takes a sip, and blows up. And then they all escape, and they live happily ever after. Kind of. During this conversation, there are things that they feed you narratively that kind of sets this movie up as a fucking prequel to the Until Dawn game, loosely. It's rough. It is so rough. I don't understand why they thought that would hit. I don't know what they thought they were cooking. It's just not very good. Like, the first half, I was having fun with. If they had just done that for the whole film's runtime, I think this would have been like an enjoyable movie. I think it would have been a fine flick. Nothing special, but it would have been fun if it's just these characters getting gradually better at surviving all of the different horror that's thrown at them until they can finally fucking survive the whole night. That would have been cool. I would have rather seen that as opposed to what they did here, where they did a few nights and then fast forwarded to the very end and tried to like fill in the blanks a little bit. It was just dumb. Like, the whole second half it's so boring. It's so excruciatingly boring. And like I mentioned, there's nothing emotional about it. Like, you don't care about any of these characters here. It's impossible to get invested in them because they don't do anything. They don't have any development. They're hardly fleshed out at all. They don't get anything to do except making bad decision after bad decision after bad decision and then eventually just getting lucky. So it's just, there's nothing to like about the second half. It was a huge fucking blunder, a big fumble, because, as I mentioned, the concept itself is fine. I don't understand why you'd even bother calling this an adaptation of Until Dawn in the first place, since you didn't do that. Really, the whole thing was just kind of a mess after the first half. That was a very weird set of decisions there for the film. So, not very good, but not as shitty as it could have been, I suppose. There's definitely worse video game adaptations out there, but this is definitely in, like, the bottom of the barrel, lower echelon of those, because we also get some very good video game adaptations from time to time now. This is not one of those, though. Anyway, that's really about it. So, yeah.